All right, everybody, welcome back to Horn Takes Live. It's Bama week, and I just did this whole show and didn't even notice the internet was out, so nothing was streaming. I got a pretty cool podcast recording, though. But we're going to do it again because it's Bama week. Check us out on Twitter, Tik Tok, YouTube, at Horn Takes. If you just like to listen to podcasts, maybe you ride around in the car a lot. Maybe you're a FedEx driver or a ground guy. Whatever. Check us out at horntakespodcast.buzzsprout.com. Little quick recruiting news, not much. Dominic McKinley, 5-star defensive tackle out of Louisiana, commits to Aggie on Friday. I don't think it was too unexpected once we got to Friday, but around Monday of that week, if you would have said this guy's going to end up at A&M, I think a lot of people would have thought you were crazy. But nonetheless, he's committed to A&M. A couple guys I think we need to keep an eye on that are committed to other teams. Wardell Mack, 5-star DB out of Louisiana, is a Florida commit. He was supposed to visit for the Rice game. Plans fell through, but he intends to come back to a Texas game sometime this fall. So, you know what I think about people that are committed, but they're checking other stuff out. I don't really feel like they're all that committed. And then I think another guy, 4-star defensive back Corian Gibson, who's a Clemson commit. If the Texas Longhorn coaching staff has kept communication up with him, and depending on how this Clemson season goes, it's not looking so good right now for the Clemson Tigers. He might be another guy that gets back in the fold. Trace Other Games recap. For those of you that don't know, the Trace Other Games are just 3 games I pick every week that are interesting to me outside of the Texas game. So we talk about them. We do a little preview, do a little predicting, and then we see how we do. Usually I do pretty good. I was bragging on myself last week about last season's Trace Other Games and how well I did. I did not do good this week. I was 1-2 this week. Let's get into it. Florida at number 14, Utah. I had predicted this game would be Utah 27-24. Ended up being Utah 24-11. Could have easily been close to my score. Florida messed up a bunch down in the red zone, had some penalties that stalled drives out in the red zone. I think it was a bad loss for Gator Nation, but I don't think they're as far away as probably most Gator fans feel like they are. One of the hardest things for fans to do is really give an honest assessment of where they feel like their team is. You've either got two cases, two sides to this. You've got the total homer that just never sees anything negative about his team, finds a way to positively spin everything. And then you got the guys that are just kind of negative about everything. They try real hard to find everything negative they can find, even in a situation where maybe it's not warranted. And I think a lot of Florida fans are in that case. If you saw Florida Twitter, I don't know why they thought they were going to win that game, but they certainly didn't play that well. But again, I don't think they're that far off. One thing I was surprised about Florida is how unathletic their defensive line is. They're just not good. And I think the Utah backup played a really good game. Utah was physical on both sides of the ball. We talked about that. They're at home. It's just a tough uphill climb for the Florida Gators that night. Didn't get it done, but I think the score was, I think the game was closer than the score indicated. CU at number 17, TCU. Long-awaited debut of Coach Prime and that new-look Buffalo team. I predicted TCU would win this game 38-7. That is not what happened. Colorado clearly was prepared to play that game. Whether TCU was prepared or not, I couldn't tell you, but they did not look like they were prepared. And Colorado was able to pull one out 45-42 over TCU. I thought Colorado looked impressive, especially offensively. Thought they had a really good game plan. Shadur Sanders did a really good job of playing within that game plan. Got the ball out quickly, was making good reads, getting the ball to the right guys. I thought Horn and Edwards were both really, really solid in this game. I made a tweet during the game. A lot of you Colorado fans and Prime fans that call me a hater and all kinds of crap like that all weekend. I made a tweet during the game. I said Travis Hunter for Heisman. That dude played 129 snaps. That is unbelievable. And like at a high level, not just was on the field for 129 snaps. I mean, this guy, you didn't see him as much on defense. He did make a hell of an interception on defense down near the goal line. But they literally threw the ball to him, Horn or Edwards, every single play. And I know literally was not the right word to use there. It was a lot. I mean, I was just sitting there watching this game in my pool, hanging out with my dad and my mom, my dad and my wife, and just thinking to myself, they got like 3 dudes, and they can't stop them. I don't know how long Travis Hunter, or if Travis Hunter can keep up that kind of a pace, but God almighty, he is good. He had 1 pick. We talked about that. 11 catches for 119 yards. And he made some really good grabs. And they weren't just, as good as Shadur Sanders was in this game, not everything was perfect, but he got the ball where his guys could try to make a play, and they did. Both him and Horn made some really, really nice catches in this game. I thought the defense for TCU just looked really slow. I thought it tackled poorly. I didn't like the game plan. We'll talk a little bit in just a few minutes about, where I was wrong. I got to eat some crow, and that's okay. I really expected TCU to have a game plan of really tight coverage and get after him, because he's not played at that level before. And usually what you want to do with a quarterback that's not played at a certain level before, and by level, I just mean a Power 5 football game. You want to get after him, confuse him, put pressure on him, and TCU did not do that. So I think that was a mistake. I think Chandler Morris is about the poorest version of Baker Mayfield you could possibly find. He's a midget. He's got to be like 5'10", tops. Made 2 huge mistakes in the red zone. Really, really cost the team. TCU had a slow start offensively, and Colorado didn't. And then just the continued bad defense and just not a great game plan, and even worse execution of that game plan. They couldn't stop Colorado basically the whole game. So I made a video, or I put a video up on TikTok of a show I did, I don't know, a couple weeks ago, I think. And usually what I do is I'll do these shows, I'll cut up some stuff, and I'll throw it on TikTok throughout the week. So this one video was not part of game week, I don't think. And it was me talking about the roster, talking about, it was when RJ Young went off on his rant about Colorado not being in the top 25 and how he thought that was crazy. And so I started talking about it on the show one day, and I was just like, man, this team was 1-11 last year. Like, to expect them to be in the top 25 doesn't make a lot of sense. And to expect other people to expect them to be in the top 25 after all this team has gone through just doesn't make a lot of sense. That video got like over 170,000 views this weekend. Tons of comments, mostly that I'm a hater, that I just want Prime to fail, that I'm white, which is pretty obvious, and just stuff like that. So what I have to do is eat a little bit of crow here. But before I do that, I want to talk about Colorado fans and Prime fans and how y'all take stuff way too personally. I can't tell you how many comments I got that basically I offended you. You would react that way if I talked about, somebody in your family or something. So I'm not a hater, guys. I'm not a hater of Deion Sanders. I'm skeptical of Deion Sanders. I'm skeptical of what this Colorado team can do over the course of a whole season. And I was just giving my opinion on a game that I thought was interesting in the week 1 of college football. My opinion in week 1 was wrong, and that's okay. So let's talk about what I was wrong about. I said Shedeur Sanders wasn't ready for what he was about to see. I said I thought TCU was going to turn him over, and I was wrong. Kinda. I mean, I will definitely say that he played an outstanding game. Within the game plan that Colorado put together, Shedeur Sanders probably couldn't have been any better. I just didn't think, again, that TCU would sit back and let him have all these short throws and all these easy, sort of reads and all that stuff that they gave him. I mean, again, not to take anything away from Shedeur Sanders, but I think if you asked him, he would even tell you they made it way too easy on me. He catch the snap, make a read, dump the ball to a guy that there was nobody around, and they went and did the rest. So I don't think Shedeur Sanders actually saw what I thought TCU would do to him, which is, again, lots of pressure from a lot of different places, play tight coverage, force him to be perfect. And they didn't do that. They went the route of, we'll play back a little bit, which maybe they were scared of the deep ball. I don't know. They played back a little bit. They didn't really get after him with a lot of bodies until the second half. And once they kind of started doing that a little bit, they did get some stops. I don't think they did it consistently enough. So I think, again, I was definitely wrong about the turnovers. He was perfect in that respect. But I don't think he saw what I thought he was going to see. I think what I was right about, with a bonus wrong, is I said they didn't have the roster to be competitive. They weren't a top 25 roster. That was basically the context of that video. They don't have the roster right now to consistently be in the top 25. And I'm still skeptical of the offensive line and defensive line. I think they're not top 25 ready. I think if teams are going to back off from them and not put a lot of pressure on that offensive line, Shedeur Sanders is going to be able to get the snap and get rid of the ball quick enough, and they're going to be okay successful. Will they be top 25 successful? I don't know. But I don't think a lot of teams are going to. I think you're going to see a completely different game plan at a Nebraska this week defensively than what you saw at a TCU. And it may not work, but I don't think Nebraska is going to sit back and let Shedeur Sanders do that to them. I think they're going to force him into the lower percentage plays, which are the balls down the field. And sometimes you just got to do that and hope it works. What you can't do is just let that guy sit back there comfortable like TCU did and just drop the ball. I mean, just distribute the ball. I mean, it's like a machine. Catch, throw. First down, big play, touchdown. I mean, again, he had to make the reads. He had to know where to go with the ball. He had to deliver the ball, and he did that very, very well. But two things can be true at the same time, folks. I think the quadruplets, that's what I'm calling them, Horn, Edwards, Hunter, and Sanders, that's a very good group of football players. So they do have some players on the roster, which, again, I did say they had some really good players. But I was surprised how good they were. I think they were better than I thought they would be. even though I was saying, these guys are probably pretty good players. All that being said, man, I think the Colorado fans and the Prime faithful and, the folks that really follow Prime and are excited about Prime, I think they should be excited. That was impressive. But I will say it was one game. Will this team be a top 25 team at the end of the season? I don't think so. I'm sure I'll get beat up again for that, but that's fine. I'm not gonna roll back off of that. Now they've got some games coming up on the schedule where they can change my mind on that. But I didn't see enough out of the offensive line, and I really didn't see enough out of that defense in that game against TCU to change my mind on where they may end up at the end of the season rankings-wise. Defense was just bad. They gave up 500 yards of offense. They did have the 2 red zone turnovers, and I think those 2 red zone turnovers are really the difference in the game. I don't know how forced they were. I saw those plays, and I thought to myself, Chandler Morris just made 2 really bad reads. Really bad decisions. I think maybe Travis Hunter baited him pretty well. He certainly made a really good play on the ball once the ball was in the air. But the one where he was trying to go to Jared Wiley over the middle early in the game was he just didn't see the field. He saw a 6'7" guy that in warm-ups you can throw it up there and he's going to jump and catch it. But he forgot there was guys from Colorado's team in the end zone waiting to intercept it. They got no pressure on the quarterback. Very rarely did they affect anything Chandler Morris was trying to do. They cannot run the ball. 34 rushes for 55 yards. That ain't going to cut it. Having said all that, I think they could be 2-0 after this Nebraska game. And if they do, they'll certainly be in the top 25. They already are. They just the new AP poll came out today. They're ranked 22nd. So right now I'm wrong on that, but I don't think I'm going to be wrong over the course of the season. We'll see. And if I'm wrong, I'll say I'm wrong, just like I said I was wrong about Shadur Sanders. Number 5, LSU at number 8, Florida State in Orlando. I predicted this one, LSU 31-21. I just thought LSU would be much better than they were. I thought they'd be better in the trenches. I think they were okay in the first half. But then they just flat out got whooped in the second half. Man, Florida State looked legit in that second half. LSU took a 17-14 lead into the locker room at halftime. And then it looked almost like they just gave up. I was checking out the box score of this game, and something interesting I noticed was almost all of the stats up and down the box score for both teams are almost exactly the same. The big difference, outside of one fumble, LSU did lose a fumble. Florida State was clean. But I think the real difference was on 3rd and 4th down. LSU was 0 for 3 on 4th downs. They were 3 for 10 on 3rd down. And Florida State was 9 of 14 on 3rd down. So Florida State was able to extend drives on 3rd downs, possess the ball, lengthen drives, and ultimately score points. And I think that was probably the difference in the game. Headed into this game, I looked at both of these teams and I thought, man, I feel like both these teams are just overrated. I mean, they're good teams, I thought. I said top 15 teams for sure. Looks like I was right about LSU. I think the jury's probably still out on FSU. They looked really good in this game for sure. With Clemson being seemingly down, I think we'll get a pretty clear picture of what the ACC might end up looking like after this weekend. You got Texas A&M going out to Miami. I think North Carolina looks pretty good in that league. Duke had a really good game last night against Clemson. I don't know. We'll see. We'll see where Florida State stacks up at the end of the season, but right now they look really good. Rice Owls recap. I predicted 52-10. We won it 37-10. I was watching this game live, hanging out with my family, not paying as much of attention as I normally would to a college football game, but just some initial reactions as I watched the game. I was like, man, the O-line is struggling. They are not playing well at all. The long ball we cannot hit. And then the defense was just absolutely suffocating. I rewatched the game this morning. And here's kind of what I came away with. On offense, the offensive line, I didn't think after rewatching the game that it was as bad as I originally thought. I think there were a lot of little things. We saw some guys that sort of had some physical struggles in the pass protection game. We saw some, instead of kicking out defenders, we saw people try to get outside and seal defenders on run plays that were clearly designed to come inside of them. I don't know. I don't know why on some of those plays people were trying to seal people in when they should have been, and really it would have just been easier to kick them out. We saw some communication problems in pass protection. Some guys get let go pretty freely. The first half of the game, especially for the offensive line, was pretty rough. I think if you look at the offensive line, you got, DJ Campbell is a first-year starter. That was his first game to start ever. You got Hayden Connor, who's a junior. I think he's been a 3-year starter, 2-year starter for sure. The other guard, the left guard position, they struggled. Physically, they struggled, and mentally, they struggled. DJ Campbell sometimes just didn't look like he knew who to block. He had some false start, penalty stuff going on. I think when DJ Campbell knows what to do, he's physical enough to go do it, but when he doesn't, he hesitates, and that really shows up. I think the combo blocks have got to be better. We saw a lot of, both second-level guys going after the backside backer and leaving the front side backer just free to make a tackle in the run game. I think overall, though, the offensive line played a lot better than my initial thoughts, and a lot of sort of the reaction from Texas fans and reaction from writers that write about Texas games. I didn't think it was as bad as a lot of other people did. Quarterbacks, I thought Quinn Ewers was, again, here's another one where people really thought he played just terribly. Like, if you didn't watch the game and you read some of the commentary, you would have thought Quinn Ewers turned the ball over 5 times in this game. Couldn't hit the broadside of a barn. He was 19 of 30 for 260 yards and 3 touchdowns. He added a rushing touchdown, and he had 2 really nice 3rd and long pickups on the ground. I am really excited to see that Quinn Ewers, they talked a lot about, his body getting better shape, him being able to move better. I don't know why he decided to run a little bit this year, but I like it, and I hope he keeps doing it because it's really tough to defend a quarterback that knows what to do when he looks up and everybody's back is to him in the secondary. And that's what he saw a couple times against Rice, and he made him pay. Ewers had his 4th touchdown pass dropped by Brooks early on in the game. Hit him right in the hands down on the goal line. Brooks probably walks into the end zone. They just dropped it. So I thought, Quinn Ewers overall had a really nice game. There are a couple things I think you could look at and sort of he's going to have to get better. I think he locks into his pre-snap read a lot. There was a play early on in the game. It was 3rd and 18. You had JT Sanders lined up kind of in a slot, and you had AD Mitchell lined up wide. They both go vertical. Sanders more like, skinny seam route type deal. And he opted to go to Sanders because I think what he saw was two high safeties. When A.D. Mitchell was pretty wide open, probably could have dropped it in the corner for a touchdown. Definitely could have looked the deep safety off on that side of the field and got A.D. Mitchell for a touchdown. But I think he was just so dialed in on, this is what I see pre-snap. This is where I'm going to go with the ball. Threw a pretty uncatchable pass. I don't even think J.T. Sanders got his hands on it. And I think the other thing you look at is just the deep ball struggles. That is a significant concern. So we'll see if he can get better at those. I don't know, man. I think you got it or you don't. And maybe it's in his head. Maybe it's a just a mental thing for him. But the deep ball is a struggle right now. Malik Murphy comes in, plays a tad bit in the third quarter and all of the fourth quarter. I thought he looked really good. Strong arm. Really good accuracy. Everybody talks about Quinn Ewers' arm talent, and I've been saying since last year, Malik Murphy has as good or better arm talent than Quinn Ewers. And I think after watching that game, I know it was a short, small sample, but the arm strength for Malik Murphy is pretty impressive. I think he's a guy that, should we need him, and I hope we don't. But I think he can come in and really lead this offense. Running backs, Cedric Baxter was only in for, I think he only got 4 carries, got hurt, nicked up pretty early in the game, so they held him out for precautionary reasons. But I thought he had really good vision and a lot better speed than I expected. There was one run, his long run, I think he busted like a 32-yard run. Play takes him to the right side of the offensive line. He has to kind of wind his way through a big mess there, and then he busts out to the left side of the offensive line, and you could see it. He definitely shifted gears, and it was fast. And I didn't expect that out of C.J. Baxter or Cedric Baxter. So I think I'm excited about that. I thought Jaden Blue was probably the most consistent runner. I really like Jaden Blue, and I kind of always have. I think he's a guy, he's got a real suddenness about him. Brooks is a big guy, powerful guy. Excuse me. Baxter is a big guy, powerful guy. Brooks is a bigger guy with a really long sort of glide to his running style. He kind of reminds me, not the speed, but just what he looks like running the ball, of Jamal Charles. Jamal Charles didn't really have like a ton of suddenness about him, but he was so fast, and it was real smooth. I think Jaden Blue has got a lot of suddenness, like a lot of stop and go suddenness, really explosive from a dead stillness. And I'm going to compare him to this guy. I'm not saying he is this guy. I'm not saying he's going to be this guy at all whatsoever, but it reminds me a little bit of Bijan Robinson and the way he can stop and go so quickly. Jaden Blue is definitely more on that side of the spectrum than Brooks or Baxter are. Brooks had a pretty decent game, continues to be a threat out of the backfield, and I think that's probably his biggest threat is out of the backfield, catching the ball. He had another long touchdown Saturday. Excuse me, folks. All three of those guys were over 4 yards per carry. Combined, they averaged for 5.6 yards per carry on 27 carries. So this whole panic about the run game, I don't think it's warranted. Look at the wide receiver position. A.D. Mitchell had a really, really nice route down in the red zone for a touchdown. But A.D. Mitchell is not much of a blocker at this point. Very small sample size. But I watched him on 4th and 1 not block the soul that was standing right across the line of scrimmage from him. He barely put a hand on him. And then I watched him on some screen passes not be very competitive in the blocking game and got some guys tackled prematurely. So I think A.D. Mitchell is definitely a guy that can get down the field. He's definitely a guy that can make some circus catches. He can definitely get open in one-on-one coverage. He showed that down in the red zone. But he's going to have to improve his blocking. Worthy had a really good but quiet day. Oddly quiet. 100 yards receiving almost. I think he was at 96. No touchdowns. But it was just kind of like a workman's effort by Worthy. And it was big time. Made a lot of plays. I think he got robbed on a catch too. I don't know. I don't know if the one that they overturned, if they really should have overturned, but doesn't matter. JT Sanders showed us again he can get down the field. And man, he is such a special talent. He looked like a really, really big wide receiver on that catch and run. I can't wait to see more of JT Sanders down the middle. I think when you look at the weapons they have on the outside, it could really open a lot for him. And they just need to execute it. Offensively, they did get stopped on 4th down twice, 4th and short twice in the first half. First one was a pretty poor throw by Quinn to JT on a little rollout into the flat. That should have definitely been a first down. It was a poorly thrown ball. I think JT Sanders was across the line where it would have been a first down if he was able to catch it. He did get both hands on it, but he had to lean over so much to catch it. When he rolled over, the ball came out. So that one was on Quinn. And then the run up the gut where A.D. Mitchell just seemingly, I don't know if he didn't know what to do, didn't care what to do. I don't know what the answer is there, but he didn't block somebody, and they went and made a tackle in the backfield. But I thought overall the offense, the points don't show it. But man, if Brooks catches that pass and they pick up they pick up those 2 4th downs and extend those drives, maybe they get a field goal out of one of them. You're looking at like a 45-47 to nothing, or 47-10, maybe even a close to what I predicted type game. So I think the hysteria amongst the Texas Longhorn faithful on this game is just a little dramatic. Defensively, the defense played really, really well, and no better group than that defensive line. Really impressed. We've heard it all camp. Like, we kept hearing this defensive line is really, really good. And I was a little bit skeptical, and they are really, really good. T'Vondre Sweat just blows up everything, whether it's the run game. I don't think I've seen a dude that size be as relentless in the pass rush as T'Vondre Sweat is. He led all defensive tackles in pass something percent. I don't even know what the stat is. It's crazy what they tracked today. Basically, the stat is like out of the number of pass plays he was in on, he beat his opponent at a higher percentage than any other defensive tackle in the country this weekend. So, just a really special talent, man. I don't know how they draft people, but if he keeps playing like that, you got to think he's going to play his way into day one. I mean, I know it sounds crazy, but I think he's that kind of talent. He's huge, and you can't move him. And not only that, but he just moves everything around and just disrupts everything so badly. Huge difference maker. Ethan Burke, the true sophomore out of Austin Westlake, played a little bit last year. You could see these flashes and go, man, that guy's got an opportunity to be really good. Big kid, 6'6", 250 pounds, really long arms, super athletic. He's a lacrosse player. he's going to be a problem. He is everywhere on the football field. He was everywhere in the spring game. And again, you see your guys play against your other guys, and you just go, well, I don't know. That could be a wash, or I'm skeptical of how good he actually is. Well, man, he had 1.5 sacks in the game on Saturday. He missed one, and he'll learn to finish those. He just got a little too antsy. He had a pretty good run around the offensive tackle, and there's the meat right there to sack, and I think he pressed B too soon. For those of y'all that don't know, Sega Genesis, the B button was the tackle button. It was like the dive button. And in high school, I was playing defensive tackle one night, and they threw a little like swing pass out to a running back, and he broke down because he saw one of our defensive backs in front of him. He's going to juke him a little bit, I guess. And I thought I had this clear shot at this kid. So I dove and got air. Got to the sideline, and my buddy says, "You hit B too soon." So that's what Ethan Burke did. It happens. You get excited. But I think he's going to be outstanding. He's good both sides of the ball too, or both the run game and the pass game. Really understands the outside leverage that he needs to keep, and just so quick and explode. Like his arms are so long. Once he really learns how to use his hands, he's gonna be a huge problem. I'm really excited to see how much he can develop while he's at Texas. I think Big Alfred Collins, if that dude decides he doesn't want to get blocked, he's not getting blocked. He had a couple of really nice plays, took on some double teams, and I'm talking he didn't move. And that's hard. And then you got Big Vernon Broughton. I thought he had a really quiet game statistically, but just like Sweat, he was in the middle just wrecking shop, making things really hard on that Rice interior. I think another guy on that defensive line that we haven't seen, he's a redshirt freshman, is Chris Ross. 6'4", 250-pound redshirt freshman. He looked really twitchy, really fluid. I saw him flash across the screen while I was rewatching the game. I was like, who the hell is that? And so I had to look up his number because I don't know all these guys yet for this season. I mean, he didn't show up in the stat line, but he looks like he's really athletic. I mean, I think he kind of came on late in camp, and I think it's just because of how athletic he is. He could be a really good one. I look for him to make some noise this year. Last bit on the defensive line is Barron Sorrell was a complete non-factor in the game. Just didn't show up in the stat line. I don't think he really affected too much. It's just one game. Not gonna be down on Barron. But I kind of thought this would be an opportunity for him to break out and really get a jump on some sacks and kind of put himself in the conversation to be one of those double-digit sack guys. But we didn't see it. Again, really early in the season. You look at the linebackers, Jalen Ford, just ball hawk. Do not throw it around Jalen Ford. He is going to catch it. I think Ant Hill is going to be a guy that is really, really good off the edge, kind of in a Harold Perkins type role from last year. He was in on a couple of passing situations. I really only saw him rush one time. He did not get a sack, but he definitely affected the throw. Caused Daniels to have to throw it high for an incomplete pass. So, again, he disrupted, and that's what you want defensive linemen to do is disrupt. And I know he's not a defensive lineman. That's what you want your pass rushers to do is disrupt. Linebackers got to get a little better on those shallow crosses. We saw David Benda kind of get pulled into the middle of the field on a crossing route that ended up going for 30-something yards, the biggest play of the day for Rice. think all that's fixable. Another guy that played a little bit, Leona Lafau, middle linebacker, number 18. He looked pretty good in very limited action. He's a true freshman, though. I mean, he's kind of the heir apparent to Jalen Ford, I think. Secondary was a non-event, and I think as you're trying to transition from a liability to something that's really great and a strength, you have to get to a point where you're a non-event. I think they played good tight coverage, really no breakdowns in coverage. Austin Jordan did get a pick. Malik Muhammad led the team with 5 solo tackles, and he had a pass breakup. He's a true freshman. Had a great camp. It's definitely spilled over into game 1. So, again, I thought the secondary was a non-event, which is, unless they're picking off passes, that's kind of what you want. Tackling was really good overall, I thought. Usually, you can look at these first games and see a lot of bad tackling. And in the past, we've seen some Texas teams that just could not tackle at all. We didn't see a lot of missed tackles. Most of the time, even in one-on-one situations, guys got their hands on runners and they got runners down to the ground. And then in a lot of cases, just a lot of guys around the ball. Special teams, Bert Auburn looked really, really good. He did miss a 56-yarder, but he didn't miss it long. He just missed it a little to the left. Kick coverage was good. Worthy was a step away on a punt return from taking it to the house. A lot of good things on special teams. Closing thoughts on this game. I mean, it was a game that I think a lot of us Texas fans thought that Texas was going to really dominate from a scoreboard perspective. And it certainly wasn't perfect, but I do not think it was anywhere near as ugly as most Texas fans think it was. I think they were just a couple of plays away from it being that really big blowout that I think a lot of us thought. The 2 guards have got to get better. They've got to be more physical. They've got to understand what they're doing better. They've got to communicate better with the offensive tackles. You just can't. Rice was able to get pressure up the middle early on in this game, pretty much the whole first half, and it really disrupted Quinn Ewers and his ability to get the ball down the field and find the right read and find the right guy to get the ball to. We can't live in a world where that continues to be a thing, where defensive tackles and stunners are getting free runs at the quarterback. So I'll be kind of interested to see if Cole Hudson, who was the starter last year at right guard and was kind of held out of this game, a little nicked up, so they held him out of this game. It'll be interesting to see if he gets a start at one of the guard positions this week. He's been playing both guard positions in fall camp, the center position in fall camp. Started last year as a true freshman. And you go back to Ewers in the long ball, sort of struggles. He just got to let it rip. He's got to stop thinking about it and just let it go. And I don't know. I don't know what that means for him, and I don't know how you get over that hump, but he's got to do it. Quinn DeWorthy should be worth 6 way more than it has been. And Quinn to A.D. Mitchell should be worth 6 a lot as well. But the only way for that to happen is if Quinn Ewers can start being way more accurate on these deep balls. He had a couple of underthrows, weren't really his fault. He had guys in his face. Still makeable plays. Just not high percentage makeable plays. But if you're a guy that's, kind of in the Heisman talk, and you're a guy that people are talking about could be a first round NFL draft pick next season, you're a guy that's trying to lead his team to a really special season, you got to be able to get that deep ball done. So we'll be looking to see if we can get that. The quick and dirty on Bama week. So the quick and dirty, every Tuesday, we're going to recap stuff from the weekend before. and we'll have a quick look ahead to this week's opponent. And that's what the quick and dirty is. So they got to clean up the offensive line communication. We talked about that earlier. Connor and Campbell got to be more physical at the point of attack. Quinn needs to continue to distribute that ball. I thought he did really well at it, actually. Again, the only sort of smudge on that is the long ball. Bama's been banged up in the secondary. I don't know who's going to play, who's not going to play, but I think if they have some guys out, Quinn's got to be able to take advantage of that. I think it'll be interesting to see how that might affect Alabama's game plan defensively. I know they're a loaded roster. They've got talent back there. But a lot of times what hurts defensive backfields is not talent. It's experience. Being in the right spot, trusting the game plan. There's a lot of stuff going on that defensive backs see that can mess them up and get them somewhere they don't need to be. And that's how you see a lot of big plays. So it'll be interesting to see how this whole injury thing works out and what it does to their game plan. You know, typically Alabama's going to kind of load up the front to stop the run, and they're going to play a lot of tight coverage behind that. So we'll see what they do on Saturday. I think Milroe is like as dangerous as they come with his legs, especially when pass plays break down. Texas is going to have to do a really good job of containing that. And that's got to slow you down on pass rushes. You can't just come with reckless abandonment. But you also can't get yourself in a position where you're letting them hang back there and get guys open down the field, because Milroe can also drop a really nice dime down the field. Milroe was a Texas commit. And then he decommitted when Quinn Ewers committed. And then Quinn Ewers decommitted and he didn't recommit. But then Quinn Ewers recommitted, and here we are. Quinn against Milroe. Close to a top 10 matchup. Texas is 11th in the AP poll. Alabama moved up to 3 in the AP poll. I think kind of the most interesting matchup in this game, for me, is a really good Bama offensive line against a really good Texas defensive line. I think whichever group out of those two groups has the best game, I think that's going to determine who wins this game. I think both Texas's offensive line and Bama's defensive line are really good units, but they're not, to me, on the same level as the Bama O-line and the Texas D-line. Random college football thoughts for the week 1. Clemson gets upset by Duke. And to me, it's starting to look like the fall of Texas football under Mack Brown. You look at these two guys and their sort of path to where we are today with Dabo and where we ended up with Mack Brown. Great run of 10-win seasons. National title game appearances and wins. All of a sudden, there's a miss on a QB. Garrett Gilbert for Mack Brown. DJU for Dabo Swinney. Which, by the way, both of those guys go on, and it's really early for DJU, but he's having a really good time at Oregon State so far. Gilbert went on to SMU, had a really good collegiate career, played in the NFL. I think he's still in the NFL. And then all of a sudden, like, the wheels just come off. And I think that really illustrates, like, the life cycle of a coach or a CEO type. They're just not effective after 10 years or so. It's hard to be effective for much longer than 10 years in a CEO / head coaching type role. And that's not just sports. That's anywhere. And that's what makes Nick Saban and what he's been able to do since really, about 2009, 2008, 2009. That's what people don't understand, how hard that is to do what he's done. Most people can't. Most people won't do that. But I think we might be seeing, sort of the fall of Dabo Swinney at Clemson. He'll get on somewhere and he'll probably do great. But I don't know. I think Clemson's in for a rough season. I don't think Swinney will get fired for having a rough season. But I don't think he has too many more rough seasons. You go back to end of last year, they started to really struggle. Be interesting to see how that turns out. The Hateful Eight of the Big 12, 3 of those guys really embarrassed themselves both on and off the field this week. You got Tech losing to Group of 5 Wyoming 35-33. You got TCU getting run around in their own home field by Colorado, a team that won one game last year, 45-42. And then you got Baylor. This is probably the most embarrassing of them all. You got Baylor getting beat by Texas State, who has never beat a Power 5 school, at home in Waco, 42-31. You got the TCU students heckling Travis Hunter. And really just kind of taking it too far with him and Deion Sanders. I'm all for the trash talk, but I think you can be a home field advantage and try to get in the other team's head, which they should do. That's the advantage of having a home field advantage, but you could do it like a little more respectfully. And then when it just totally backfired after they dogged Travis Hunter and he had the type of game he had, caught an interception right in front of him. Not a great look. I know it happens everywhere. I'm not trying to single out TCU fans, but, screw them because they've been a bunch of whiny bitches for a really long time now. TCU unveils a college football playoff banner. I don't like a participation banner. Seems weird. I don't know if other teams do that. Not intentionally singling out TCU. But to me, that's really lame. And then Joey McGuire spent the entire summer taking shots at Texas, taking shots at Coach Sark. And then all of a sudden he takes his team on the road and loses to a Group of 5 school in double overtime. And now he's quoting Sark about embracing the hate. And this all revolved around, I don't know if someone asked him a question or if he just offered this information up about all the stuff he's reading on social media that Texas Tech fans are saying. Which, why is a coach paying attention to social media? It's the coach's job to go win games. And it's the fans' job to show up and then piss and moan when the head coach doesn't do his job. And that's all Tech fans were doing. But apparently it struck a chord with Joey McGuire and some of the big-time boosters there at Texas Tech. And then Joey McGuire goes on to tell them they need to be bought in or they need to shut their mouths. And Tech fans will love you, but they'll also turn on you real quick. Chris Beard can tell you about that. Mike Leach can tell you about that. I'm not sure he endeared himself to a lot of Texas Tech fans with that commentary. And I think with Oregon coming to town this weekend, if that goes badly, which I'm not saying it is, but Oregon offensively looked pretty damn stout in their opener. Sure, it was against a nobody, but they scored 80 points. Texas Tech can probably score some points. They're not keeping up with that type of point scores. I think things could get pretty ugly in Lubbock, Texas for Joey McGuire. I think the Wyoming game looks pretty interesting now in a couple weeks. Check this scenario out. What if the Texas Longhorns go on the road, find a way to beat Alabama and Tuscaloosa, come back to Austin feeling really good about themselves, and get themselves in a dogfight with Wyoming like Texas Tech got themselves in a dogfight with Wyoming. Could happen. Could be one of those trap games. It would be a damn shame to go 2-0, come home and lose that type of game. That Peasley kid, that quarterback for Wyoming, did not have a great statistical game, but he showed up big time at the end of that game. You don't want to let that type of dude hang around. Really excited. The Horn Takes Traveling Roadshow is about to go on the road. We are going to Tuscaloosa, baby. We're going to leave on Thursday. We're going to drive to Shreveport. We're going to spend the night in Shreveport. Then we're going to get up and go to Columbus, Mississippi, spend the night there. And then we'll get up Saturday, head on into Tuscaloosa. We're going to have a live show either Thursday or Friday. I don't know which one. Once I know, I'll let you guys know. We'll talk about the week 2 Trace other games. Of course, we'll have a Bama game preview and predictions. I'm going to try to get some really cool content for you guys while we're in Tuscaloosa, while we're at the stadium. Subscribe to the YouTube channel at Horn Takes. Check out the podcast anywhere you listen to podcasts. If you're a driver, you don't like to watch ugly people on video talk about football, you can check out that podcast. Twitter, TikTok, YouTube, all at Horn Takes. You can email me at horntakespodcast@gmail.com with all your questions, comments, concerns, and criticisms. I love them all. You guys get hooked.